Hello, Angel. Today I am spilling the tea on how I got laid off 3 years ago and how it was the best thing that ever happened to me. This video is for you if you've recently lost your job or if you're worried about job security. I want to share the exact story of how I lost my job and how I was prepared and able to make the best of it, and how now, 3 years later, I have a successful, profitable business and I have more freedom, fulfillment, and fun than ever before. And before we jump into the tea, my name is Anna Lacomi. I'm known on these internet streets as your career guardian angel. And I work with the most ambitious, brilliant women from all over the world to help them create success in a way that feels good. Because success was not meant to be a struggle, it wasn't meant to be painful. In fact, when you learn the way you're meant to succeed, success can feel like flow, it can feel effortless, and dare I say, it can feel fun and pleasurable. Okay, it's tea time. So, what happened 3 years ago? So, let me give you some context. So, if you know my story, you know that yes, I became a corporate queen. I became the general manager at the office where I was an intern just 9 years prior, one of the only females and also the youngest to have a role like that. However, that was preceded by a very tumultuous career in which I felt invisible, overworked, abused, underpaid, taken advantage of for many, many, many years. And so at this point in my career, I was a corporate queen, I was the head of the office, everything was going super well.
Why is my cat trying to sabotage me? Can you calm down? Don't you see we're doing a YouTube video? Get your act together, girl.
So at this point in my career, I had an incredible salary, I had the job title, I had the respect, I had the prestige. What happened? Could I have done something to prevent getting let go? The answer is absolutely yes. Looking back, I now see that it was a tumultuous time during the global health event that happened in 2020, and this was March of 2022. So a lot was changing really quickly. And to be very honest, I was not as attuned to my workplace at the time. I was not attuned to the shifts in power. And specifically, even though I noticed who was gaining leverage, when I noticed who had the ears of influential leaders, I was not aligned with that person. In fact, that person didn't like me, and I quite frankly didn't care. At that point, I had already started to tap into my zone of genius. In the year 2020, so it had been 18 months at this point that I was actually exploring what my other gifts are beyond being a corporate queen, beyond being a leader, a manager, an executive. What other talents can I use? How do I want to impact the world? What meaning do I have in my life? What legacy am I leaving behind? So I was already doing this work prior to getting let go. And to be very honest with you, I dropped the ball. I took the foot off the pedal. Even though I had learned exactly how to build a personal brand, how to build the kind of relationships that give you advancement as well as job security and job stability, at this point in my life, I was not there. I was not interested in job stability, job security. It was nice, but I knew I had bigger dreams. I knew that my heart was in a different place. And so, yes, I dropped the ball. I was no longer aligned to the shifting powers. And as soon as they could get rid of me, they did. And I'll never forget it. It was 3 years ago. It was the day before St. Patrick's Day, March 16th, 2022. And we all of leadership got on a call and we were told there's big changes happening. And of course, everyone's like, oh my gosh, who's getting let go? I think a third of people got let go that day. And you start to think, who might it be? And you start to think of people who maybe are slackers or less talented than you, and you think they're probably on the chopping board. Even though I knew my heart was no longer in that place, I was still doing an excellent job. I was still matching, surpassing revenue targets. I was killing it. Okay. And so I never thought that I would be on the chopping block, but I'll never forget that day. I remember praying and speaking to God and saying, God, if this is you shoving me out of this safety comfort zone, I welcome it. God, you know, I've been exploring my zone of genius. I've created this career guardian angel brand. I already had a few clients then. I was posting cringy content on Instagram, the one where you're pointing at things. Do you remember those days? But I did not have the courage to go all in. I did not have the courage to take the leap. So I remember praying to God and saying, God, if this is you forcing me out of here so that I could go all in on me, I will do it as if I had a choice. I will do it, but please, God, can you give me severance? As people started, severance is when you get paid after you get laid off for a certain set of time. And so as people were getting let go, I started hearing the rumors that severance was not being given. And then when I had my fateful conversation, I was given severance. And that was not because they were kind, that was because they knew how much power I had and the relationships that I built and the business that I built. I'm not going to say more due to an NDA about what happened after I left and what happened with the clients. Doesn't matter. What matters is that I got let go. I wasn't even upset. I remember actually feeling happy. I remember feeling this peace and inner calm because I was already on a different path. My heart was already somewhere else. I had already created a new vision for myself. Even though I really, really enjoyed my career, I loved working in market research. I loved being a leader. I loved being a thought leader. I loved managing and nurturing talent. I still had bigger dreams of having a life where I had more freedom, having a life where I call the shots. I work with who I want. I work when I want. I work how I want, how much I want. This is what I was dreaming of, and I saw as a possibility for myself when I started to really explore what my values are. What my desires are, not what society was telling me, because I had done what society told me to do. And there I was, like I said, on this corporate throne, bored, unfulfilled, thinking, is this all there is? And I'll never forget when I embarked on that journey to find my zone of genius, I remember thinking, is this the rest of my life? Because I really had reached a peak in my corporate career. And I was like, is this it? And then I remember thinking, like, if this is going to be the next 30, 40 years of my life, even 10 or 20, it made me want to vomit. Not that anything was awful or bad, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't that zest for life, that magical quality that I expected for myself. And so I got let go. I got my severance package. I was really happy about that. And then I took a little bit of time off because March 27th is my birthday. So I remember I got let go. The next day was St. Patrick's Day, and my husband and I went into Manhattan to meet up with our friends and do a little bit of St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And then my husband took me out in Manhattan. We stayed in the city because we live in Connecticut. And we just had an amazing time. And it was a transition because at this point, I was losing my corporate salary eventually. And so this was a transition where my husband would have to potentially, hold down the fort as I build my own thing. And then shortly after that was my birthday, and we already had planned to go to Cancun, to where we had gone for our honeymoon back in 2010, one of our favorite spots. And so I was just living it up, and I was just feeling this inner peace of this didn't happen to me, this getting laid off, this happened for me. So if you are sitting there and you have recently gotten let go, I want to assure you that this is probably not the end of the world. This is probably removing something that was no longer aligned for you. And if you're being really honest, you probably were thinking, is this it? Should I find a different job? Should I try something else? Am I really passionate about this? Do my values align with this organization's values? That's a very important question to ask. And I don't want to bypass or negate the huge emotions that usually do come with getting let go. Even if you expected it, even if you hated the place, I do want to acknowledge that there's really big feelings because our identity is often tied to our job. It's tied to our profession, especially as ambitious women. We are pushed, and these titles and our salaries define who we are, define our worth, define how much happiness we allow ourselves to feel. And so that's why I think I didn't get hit hard with these emotions because I had already chosen a different identity. And I did that by exploring my zone of genius. I did that by grounding myself in my values. What do I deeply care about in the world? What does my ideal day look like? What does my ideal future look like? And I really did this work, like I said, for 18 months prior to getting let go, which I didn't know was going to happen. But I was prepared because I had been doing this internal work and shifting my life to align more with my values as opposed to being on that autopilot, which can often happen, especially if you have a corporate career, especially if you have a corporate career that's 10 years or longer. And so I had done this identity shift where I was not just defined by who I am in my corporate role. I started to define myself by the gifts that I started exploring. I started defining myself by the passions that emerged when I dared to dream of what else am I interested in. I had been in the market research industry for 12 years. When I started doing the Zone of Genius work, it had been 10 years that I was in that industry. And like I said, I loved it and I was incredible in it. But I wondered, like, what do I like besides research and data and emotions and advertising and brands? What else do I like? And to be honest, at first, this is a big part of my journey. I actually thought I was going to do market research, but on a smaller scale as a consultant, as a freelancer. That's what I thought I was going to do because my mind was so limited after so much years of programming and autopilot. I thought all I could do was what I was already doing, but do it differently in a way where I have more autonomy, more freedom. And I'm so grateful to one of my mentors, Bianca, who I called up and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about this. And she was in market research. She was one of my mentors there. I was like, I'm thinking about doing market research on the side, for me to build up my own business. And then she was like, girl, like, I don't, your voice doesn't sound like you're enthused by that idea. You sound deflated by that idea. I see you out there on stages, on YouTube, sharing your message. You're uplifting people, inspiring and motivating. That's what I see you doing. And that's why it often takes a mentor that sees you to tell you what they see because we have all these limiting beliefs. We have all these insecurities. We think we can't dream bigger. We think we're limited to that box that we've been in for so long. And she helped me eliminate that idea. I crossed it off. And another idea was brewing. And the other idea was to be a coach for ambitious women to help them not get abused. Originally, a lot of my work as the career guardian angel was very much in the corporate sphere. I created this program called the Career Slayer Bootcamp, which is still available. It's one of my signature programs that teaches you how to work less but earn more. It teaches you how to advance in your career by building a personal brand and by creating perceptions and building the right relationships so you don't have to be a workhorse, which is what I was for years before I figured out how to play the game. And that was instrumental. And it and I never thought I would be a coach at all. It was never in my realm of possibilities. But when I did exercises such as mind mapping, where I listed out my different passions and interests, and then I did these little bubbles to see what else I associated with these different areas of interest that I had, every single page had something about women and something about helping women not get abused. It was a very vigilante, justice-driven, slightly rage-fueled passion that I had to help women. And so when I looked at the page and then when I felt in my heart that excitement, even though I had no experience in coaching women prior to this, aside from mentoring women in the corporate world, the page jumped out on me and I could no longer ignore what was an exciting, exhilarating path for me. And so that's why when 18 months later I got let go, I had already created the groundwork of discovering this, starting to embody it and starting to take steps towards it. So, like I said, I started to create for that. I started to have clients for that. A lot of them were non-paying at the time, but I was getting that experience and using those gifts and building out that confidence. So when I got dropped out of corporate, out of that nest, bing, I literally started to fly. I'm not saying I soared, not saying that, but I started flapping around. I was like, okay, okay. And then now I can actually say I am soaring 3 years later. And even if you haven't gotten let go and you're watching this, I want to offer that if you are worried about job security, even if you take Career Slayer Boot Camp, which will solidify so much of your stability because it aligns you to the power, okay? Even there's no guarantees. Like for me, I never thought I would get let go. My performance was stellar, but I did. And that's the thing with getting let go. It's usually, I'm not going to say it's not personal. It's definitely personal. Yes, it is business, but also like there's personal agendas. And if you're not aligned to the right person's agenda, you might be on the chopping board. It doesn't matter what your performance is, doesn't matter how well loved you are by your staff or your clients, you might be let go. So if you are still in your job, if you're still getting that stable paycheck, girl, take advantage of that. Take advantage to have that delicious stability and security that you have and start thinking about your zone of genius and what you might want to do next. And it doesn't have to be a business. It could be something completely different. It could be a career pivot. It could be a pivot in the kind of roles that you do. Maybe you've been a manager, but you want to be more of an expert. Or maybe you've been an expert and that expertise is no longer lining you up and you want to move more towards leadership. Or maybe you want to be creative. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to start your own YouTube channel. If you still have your job, use that time, use that stability, use those funds to fund your future and your destiny. And I'm going to be frank with you, with AI, the economy, the shifts in the market. Like there's so much going on, there's so many changes. The old 9 to 5 corporate job stability is not as stable, not nearly as stable as it used to be. Even if you haven't gotten let go, you've probably been through rounds of layoffs. You've seen your friends get laid off. You've seen maybe your parents or your partner get laid off. This has become sort of the new norm. And so, whether you are employed or not, it is important to continue building on your skills. And I don't mean if someone gave you feedback at your job that you're bad at presentations, that you should be better at presentations. That is absolutely not what I'm about. I'm about identifying your innate strengths, your natural talents, and honing them more like a fine diamond, okay? That is where the magic is. That is where your biggest impact is. That is what's going to create your biggest success. And that is also what's going to create fulfillment for you. It's not fun working on skills that we suck at. It's fun when we are in that zone of genius that I keep talking about. And if you're not exactly sure what the zone of genius is, I am making a separate video on exactly what the zone of genius is as a holistic concept. But for today, it's basically the unique skills that you have to create impactful work, meaningful work that's also fulfilling to you, probably exciting to you, and also energizing. A lot of us in the corporate world, we get stuck in our zone of excellence, which we're still really good at certain things. We've developed certain skills. We've gotten positive feedback and praise. I'll be honest, I could have done my job with my eyes closed, sleeping. I was that good. But ultimately, the zone of excellence drains us, depletes us. The zone of genius energizes us, enlivens us, revitalizes us. And that's how I feel now. And that's one of the biggest shifts from being a corporate queen to being my own boss. The biggest shifts is the energy, the joy, the fun, the play that is infused to my daily life now. Whereas before, I had to sort of work around the dread, work around feeling drained. I had to do all this self-care just to make it through the week. And now self-care is a part of my business. It's a part of my flow. Creating, this is self-care for me. This is flow and fulfillment for me. And so it's a very vastly experience. And I believe that's because, like I said, I went all in on me and I decided to find out what my zone of genius was. And I decided I was worthy of going on that journey. And I had the courage to take those steps when I was still employed. And once I got let go, I could have absolutely gotten a different corporate job. There was many of my clients who wanted to hire me, but I decided this was destiny and I was meant to go all in on me. And I'm so glad now, 3 years later, that I did because my life is vastly different. And I just love it so much that I get to use my gifts. I get to serve the most amazing women. I get to share my stories, share my wisdom that I've been collecting for years, and share it with you guys. And it has been such an honor and just I can't even explain. Like, when I wake up, I truly am like, I cannot believe this is my life. If you're feeling really inspired by this idea of the zone of genius that I've been sharing, I have a video up right now, which is a pep talk, a powerful pep talk for ambitious women. It's called You Didn't Get This Far to Be Meh. And so if you want to check that out and light a fire under your butt, go ahead and do that because in that video I shared what you need to know, the 5 things that you need to know in order to own your genius and create a life that lights you up like you see me right now, and also the 5 things that you need to do. And if you want to go even deeper than that, doors are currently open for my program called You Didn't Come This Far to Be Meh. So it's called the same title as the video. And in that program, it's a 3-month intimate group program just for ambitious women who are ready to do this kind of work, who are ready to discover who they are, what their true essence is, what kind of magic they're meant to create in this world. And we're going to be doing that together in a group. And it's going to be basically this rocket ship to your next level with me as your pilot guiding you every step of the way. If you're curious about that, comment genius in the comments and I'll send you more information. And then finally, some parting words. I always believed that chaos, which is what we feel in the world right now, chaos is fertile ground. Okay, so we can either dissolve into the chaos and be in shambles, or we can recognize and do a power play and a power move and recognize that chaos, when everything is moving around, everything is uncertain, that's when there's new opportunities. That's when big moves can be done. That's when things can be shaken up. And all it requires is for you to decide to have the courage and take that leap and take that next step towards your destiny. That's all for today, angels. See you next time.